welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. The decision to place First St. Vincent Bank Limited into receivership was not taken lightly and was done in the public's interest in pursuance of the Banking Act. This is according to Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Dr. Timothy Antoine, who is addressing a news conference here earlier today after news broke on Friday, May 27, 2023, of the action taken against the bank by the ECCB.
And I want to be very clear. The decision to put a bank into receivership is a very serious decision, has to be predicated on the public interest, and that is precisely what we have done. In our deliberate judgment, the First St. Vincent Bank was failing, and there was no prospect, immediate or near term, of a turnaround in the situation. As a consequence, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank acted in the public interest, particularly in respect of depositors and creditors, to ensure the preservation of financial stability. That means that First St. Vincent Bank is now closed, and in due course the banking license will be revoked. That also means, and that's the good news, that the depositors and customers of the First St. Vincent Bank now have the ability soon to continue to resume their banking services through the Bank of St. Vincent and Grenadines, which has graciously accepted our invitation to acquire certain assets and liabilities of First St. Vincent Bank. Now, I want to be very clear. When we make a decision in respect of a resolution, we have to decide, on which institution can acquire certain assets and liabilities. And in our deliberate judgment, Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines was able to demonstrate to us that it had the financial strength and capacity to undertake this assignment. And so we invited Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to do that.
Dr. Antoine further explained that the ECCB's decision to engage Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that's BOSVG, in the transaction process of acquiring some assets and liabilities of First St. Vincent Bank.
When we make a decision about resolution, we have to look at the possible acquirers. The history of First St. Vincent Bank is very clear. This is the oldest bank in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. 1909 is when it started, an indigenous bank. And therefore, I think it would have been passing strange if we did not, in fact, consider our indigenous options. That is what we've done. When you consider your options, you have to look to see financial strength, you have to look to see capacity. One of the very important things for us is the fact that the IT system used by Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is very similar to the IT system, the core banking system, I should say, used by First St. Vincent Bank. Why is that important? That is important because it reduces the transition time to move the assets and liabilities from First St. Vincent Bank to Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What does that mean? It means the customers get faster access to their funds. And clearly for us, that's a big motivation for how we have structured this transaction. As you saw in the release, come June 1, Thursday of this week, customers which have been transferred or who have been transferred to Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will have full access to their funds up to $100,000. But the IT system or the core banking system is an important issue in terms of how you transition, how you migrate accounts from one institution to another. And so we took that into account because that speeds up the transition time or reduces the transition time and speeds up the time at which the customers can actually access their funds. Very, very important for us. So our actions are in the interest of the public, particularly our depositors, creditors, and overall.
The ECCB governor also clarified a statement made in the announcement last Friday, which says that as of June 1st, customers of First St. Vincent Bank who have been transferred to BOSVG will have access to their funds up to $100,000.
I want to be very clear. that when we say up to 100,000, if a customer has $1,000 in First St. Vincent Bank, that is being transferred to Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. 5,000, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, all the way up to 100,000. And I'm saying that because it appears that some people are not clear whether it means only 100,000. Anything below 100,000 depositors we have identified will be moving. So the truth is, over 90 or around 90% of all depositors in this bank, First St. Vincent Bank, will be migrated to Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that is good news for those depositors, because not only are they moving then to their account to a strong institution, but they will soon have access to their funds. Now, in pursuing this resolution, we have had to not just identify an acquiring bank in Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but as per the law, to appoint a receiver to oversee the affairs of the bank. So as of Friday, with the appointment of the receiver, the control for the operations, the winding up essentially of First St. Vincent Bank, is now in the hands of receivers. We've appointed joint receivers in the persons of Mr. David Collins and Mr. David Standish of Interpath Advisory, one of whom is here today, as I mentioned earlier. And they will now be responsible legally to oversee the appropriate arrangements with respect to those assets and liabilities that remain in the receivership. I just want to be very clear. When you do a resolution, you transfer both assets and liabilities. So on the asset side, principally, we have loans that are going to Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. On the liability side, we have deposits that are going. And essentially what we try to do is to match assets and liabilities so that we could have a transaction. So for those of you who are wondering, well, I have a loan at First St. Vincent Bank, what happens? Well, in all probability, your loan is moving to Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and of course, you have your deposits moving there as well. People have been wondering, well, what if I have salary deductions, or I have salaries? Those two, I imagine, will be moving, and to be able to.
As to customers of First St. Vincent Bank whose accounts are over 100,000 EC dollars, the ECCB governor said they are now in the control of the receivership, which will assess the financial condition of the bank, including its assets and liabilities, and will make a decision thereafter, which he said is a process and will take some time, but that they are trying their best to speed up the process as they want to give clarity to all concerned. Noting that the control of the bank is now with the receiver, the ECCB governor gave the assurance that the banking system here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is sound, as he explained why customers of First St. Vincent Bank Limited were not informed prior to Friday's action when it was placed in receivership.
And banking business is continuing today as normal. So other financial institutions who are in the system here are open today and are functioning normally, and we expect that to continue. For the customers of First St. Vincent Bank, you will have access to resources on Thursday. And in case you're wondering why the delay is to conclude the arrangement with Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the acquiring institution, the systems, the transfer, the migration. Those things do take time. They've been working, the teams have been working very hard over the last few days, but they need that time to be able to do that. That is why, for example, those funds are not available today. There is time required to get those arrangements in place. No, customers were not notified in advance, and I am not aware of anywhere in the world where a bank resolution is done, where a bank is put into receivership, that customers are notified in advance. Why is that? To protect the integrity of the transaction and to give the customers the best chance to maximize access to their resources. So obviously, when you're doing a transaction of this nature, you have to be mindful that you are putting together assets and liabilities to effect the transfer. You can't tell shareholders, board, management, customers in advance, because that will undermine and potentially unravel the transaction. I'm being very lucidly clear so people understand. This is not bank resolution does not allow us to give customers prior notice. That's a little different from an acquisition like you have seen in the region and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where you know this one is buying, and I suppose if you don't want to move over, you can close your account and move. This is different. This is an action taken by the supervisor because of a failing institution, and therefore to preserve the integrity of the transaction, we cannot give advance notice. So I want to just be clear on that. It is not out of disrespect, but that is how we have to approach it to protect the very depositors, to maximize their ability to access their funds as soon as possible. So that.
According to the ECCB governor, there was nothing untowards in their action by not giving the board, management and staff of the bank an earlier heads up, noting that they couldn't afford any leaks which could have compromised the transactions. He said it is the practice all over the world in terms of dealing with a bank resolution, which is to preserve the integrity of the transaction and maximize protection for depositors and creditors. In other news now, we hear that the fishing industry here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been growing in both volume and value. This is according to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves as he addressed the prize-giving ceremony for the 46th Fisherman's Day competition held at the Calico Playing Field yesterday, Monday, May 29, 2023, under the theme Our Livelihood, Our Industry, Let Us Protect It Through the Blue Economy, with the slogan, Make Our Future Bright, Fish Right. Given comparative figures for the last 2 years, the Prime Minister noted that in 2022, fish landing was 15% more than that of 2021, and the value of the fish landed in 2022 was 30% more than in 2021. Prime Minister Gonsalves said over £3 million was sold on the local market last year, amounting to over 22 million EC dollars.
I want you to get that number in your head. Last year, 3.2 million pounds of fish, including the conch, were landed and marketed in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want that number to sink in. And the value of what was landed, the fish sales from the local market, amounted to almost $22 million. Those are the numbers. Over 3 million pounds of fish, including conch and lobster, were landed last year with a value of almost $22 million. That is, in fish landings, 15% more than 2021, and the value 30% more than in 2021. So you see, last year the fishing industry is growing both in volume and in value. These things don't happen by accident.
On the progress for the year thus far, Prime Minister Gonsalves said that over 700,000 pounds of fish landed within the first 3 months of the year.
Over 760,000 pounds of fish were landed in the first 3 months of this year, with an estimated market value of nearly $6 million. That's in the, remember, every year have 4 quarters, you know, and that's 1 quarter. So we are on target, all things being equal, of improving on what we did last year, because already for the first quarter the landings increased by over 8% and the value by over 21% compared to the first 3 months last year. I'm giving you the information, the data to support the words that you heard from Saboto and from Camilo.
He also outlined the different species of fish that continue to be landed locally, noting a decrease in the catch of yellowfin tuna, dolphin and lobster.
The most important one from a singular basis is conch. Roughly 1/3 is from conch. And the conch fisher folk have been doing quite well. But there are other species of great importance, and the fishermen know this. Jacks, yellowfin tuna, barracuda, dolphin, mahi-mahi, and lobster. In 2022, last year, we see a lot of increase in robin and jacks and barracuda. In fact, for robin and jacks, twice the robin and jacks were landed last year as landed in 2021, during the year of suffering. But we have to watch yellowfin tuna, dolphin and lobster, because we see some decreases. And all that has to be examined as to all the reasons. Some of them proffered by Sabuto and Camilo. But some of it also has to do, especially with the lobster, not only suffering, but also climate change.
Meanwhile, Davian Market of Clare Valley was awarded Fisherman of the Year with a catch of 644.81 pounds of fish. Chief Fisheries Officer Jennifer Cruikshank Howard announced the winners in the respective categories of the Fisherman's Day Competition 2023 during the closing and prize-giving ceremony yesterday. In second place with a catch of 365.8 pounds was Timothy Murphy, and in third place with a catch of 333.9 pounds was Reuben Bradshaw. Also in the Class 1 competition, Davian Market topped in the single heaviest catch category with 42.75 pounds. Julian Bradshaw and Dennis Gibson tied for second place with a catch of 16.5 pounds. For the most heads of catch caught, the top prize went to Timothy Murphy with 442 heads, followed by Reuben Bradshaw with 412 heads, and third, Calvert Thomas. In the Class 2 category of the competition, Julian Bradshaw with 228 pounds of fish was awarded the biggest catch, followed by Barney Wright with 171.23 pounds and Suhan Lucas with 135 pounds. The single heaviest catch in Class A was awarded to Barney Wright with a catch of 18.02 pounds, followed by Julian Bradshaw with 13.2 pounds, and in third place Suhan Lucas with 8.5 pounds. The most catch in Class 2 was Alan Broker with 218 heads, followed by Julian Bradshaw with 116 heads and Sean Bradshaw with 112 heads. In the Class 4 category, David Brown was the lone competitor with a catch of 18.5 pounds. Chief Fisheries Officer Jennifer Cruikshank Howard said that with a total catch of 3,655.03 pounds of fish this year was a good year for the Fisherman's Day competition.
Participated in this year's activities, and especially the Fisherman of the Year and his crew. You did well. To you, the Fishermen of St. Vincent, we appreciate your contribution to this nation in food security by making sure that fish is on our dishes. The Fisheries Division staff and the fisher folks who attended the planning meetings, thank you. The Fisherman's Day Committee Chairman, Mr. Raul Lewis, who cannot be here today, this afternoon, he has some transportation issues, and the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Winsbott Harry, the Ministry of Agriculture and the staff of the Fisheries Division. We'd like to thank you for your support.
And Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Sabota Caesar, commended local fisher folk for their work in building the fishing industry.
Commend firstly the fisher folk of our country for the excellent work that they continue to do. When the seas are rough, when the sun is extremely hot, they are the ones who, from day to day, would brave the seas to ensure that we have fish to purchase at the different centers. And I want us to give the fisher folk a special round of applause for their hard work and dedication. Food security is of first importance. Fish must always be available, fish must be affordable, and fish must always be accessible in our country. To develop any country, there are 4 simple tenets which must always honor. There must be a clear political will to do what is right. The laws must be in place to ensure that that political will is honored.
And Caesar said that throughout the entire OECS, St. Vincent and Grenadines has the most and best quality fisheries centers operated in a joint partnership between the government and the private sector.
The enabling environment was created. Persons started to invest. And it is very important that we appreciate this, that to have a functioning fisheries sector, we must have the proper laws and regulations in place. And during the course of this year, the rest of the year, we are going to go out through the different communities and speak to the fisher folk, the fishing organizations, because before the end of 2023, we want to make some significant amendments to the Fisheries Act. Because as the industry continues to evolve, we must also see an evolution in the rules and regulations governing the industry. Importantly for the fisher folk is the ability to harness the resources in the blue economy. It's one thing to build the airport to create the opportunity to move the fish, to lease out the facilities so that persons can have an opportunity to purchase fish from the fisher folk for export and for local consumption. But the question is, how are we going to get more fish?
Over 100 fisher folk and 29 boats took part in this year's Fisherman's Day competition. 2 loan agreements worth $16 million was signed on Friday between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Saudi Fund for Development. SVG's Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology, Camilo Gonzalez, and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Saudi Fund for Development, His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, signed the 2 loan agreements to construct a primary care center in the South Rivers area and a cultural center of arts in Bellevue. The signing of the 2 agreements is part of the efforts undertaken by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia through the Saudi Fund for Development, the SFD, to support sustainable development in developing countries and small island developing states around the world. With decades of expertise since its establishment in 1974, the Saudi Fund for Development has implemented more than 700 development projects and programs in 85 countries worldwide. The signing on Friday at the Argyle International Airport marked the SFD's first presence here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the 86th country to receive funding for a development project from the SFD. Speaking at the signing ceremony, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez said the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a staunch supporter of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and a vital leader in the Middle East, noting that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is committed to the strategic relationship with Saudi Arabia going forward.
And everything flows from that. And I'm looking forward to visiting Saudi Arabia, and I've invited, through my brother Ahmed, His Excellency the Crown Prince, whom I met once before in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. I remember the meeting very well. Saudi Arabia is a major country in the world and certainly a vital leader in the Middle East. And they possess critical resources, natural resources, principally the petroleum, the oil industry, but there's much more than that. in Saudi Arabia, and they have built themselves to a point where they are not quote-unquote dependent on oil. They have invested wisely, and they are building their country into a very modern, developed country, but grounded in tried and tested values of the Arab civilization and the magnificent component represented by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This is vital for everybody to grasp and understand. Because there are some countries in the world, they would wish to define and redefine and reshape all corners of the globe in their own image and likeness. Well, that is not their business. You know, I have a saying here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I tell our people this, and especially the young, for them to realize. We are not better than anybody, but nobody is better than us. Which is the same sentiment of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the same sentiment of His Majesty, and also, very importantly, of the Crown Prince.
PM Gonzalez also told the ceremony that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been seeking to further boost relationship for some time with Saudi Arabia, dating back to the governance of Sir Milton Cato, who was instrumental in getting some Vincentians to go to Saudi Arabia to work to help build one of its cities. PM Gonzalez also noted that Saudi Arabia was instrumental in SVG securing its non-permanent position on the UN Security Council.
And I want everyone here to know that a very strong supporter of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in our bid to sit on the Security Council of the United Nations when we had the elections on the 7th of June 2019, a very big supporter and campaigner for us in the Middle East. I met the Arab League at the United Nations, and the Saudi ambassador spoke very forcefully for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And every single country in the Arab League, including and led by Saudi Arabia, voted for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to be a member of the Security Council. I take that as being very important. Similarly, they supported us very strongly the year before when we became the president of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, one of the major bodies at the United Nations. One of the things I would love to see is for the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of those workers and others, the young people of today in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to get an opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia to study at one or more of your prestigious universities on scholarships from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You know, there is a saying that when you cast your bread upon the waters, it comes back to your benefit. I don't know if you have a similar saying in your country. You cast your bread upon the waters. And in 1979, our founding father and the workers who went there cast their bread upon the waters. And now, it is the time. So you know how I feel.
And Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Saudi Fund for Development, His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, said the signing of the first projects in St. Vincent and the Grenadines marks an exciting and bright chapter for Saudi Arabia and SVG.
We came last year after COVID to show our commitment and to listen to our friends, planning and aiming to expand our friendship and relationship with the countries in the Caribbean in general and here in particular. We left with many requests under the direction of the Honorable Prime Minister And today we fulfilled all the asks and requests from both parties. His Majesty the King of Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince asked me to convey their best wishes and regards to the Honorable Prime Minister and to the people here. I thank you for receiving us today, and I can tell you, as I told the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph, my friend, this is just the start. In Saudi Arabia, we start a long-term relationship, healthy relationship that is based on respect for others and based on and aims to develop countries and nations. I think the program we have with us today will definitely deliver these promises. I thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for receiving us, and I promise you that we will work very hard to deliver all the future initiatives, and we all look forward to receiving you in Saudi Arabia.
We hear that as a consequence of a viral video being circulated portraying a 10-year-old student performing fellatio on a male, the police on Saturday, May 27, 2023, arrested and charged Dion Batiste, a 37-year-old unemployed of Camden Park, with abduction, indecent assault, and 2 counts of child pornography under the Cyber Crimes Act. Batiste appeared at the family court today, May 30, 2023, to answer the charges and plead guilty to the charges. He was remanded into custody at His Majesty's prison until July 12, 2023 for sentencing. Meanwhile, on Friday, May 26, Dario Baca, a 26-year-old conductor of Connery, was arrested and charged with the offense of wounding. Baca allegedly unlawfully and maliciously wounded a 36-year-old seaman of Montgrennan by stabbing him about his body with a knife in Kingston on May 19, 2023. Baca is expected to appear before the Serious Offences Court to answer to the charge. The West St. George constituency now has its own radio station, which was promised almost 3 years ago by the NDP's caretaker of the constituency, Kay Bacchus Batiste, during the 2020 elections, which she lost to the ULP's Curtis King. The radio station, which is located at Queen's Drive and can be listened to via an online platform, was launched yesterday, Monday, May 29th, during the Community Talent Show and exhibition at the Daphne Community Center. In an interview with SVGTV News, Bacchus Batiste said that the radio station, which is called West St. George Community Radio, is for the upliftment of the people of the constituency.
But the biggest event, I think, is the launching of our online radio station, which is the West St. George Community Radio. We call it WGC, West St. George Community Radio. It is up and running. It is currently online, and we hope to bring all the community programs on that. Right? Though it is NDP bringing it, we are not partisan. We're going to carry programs of whoever wants us to carry their programs, because we believe in building the community, and we believe that a radio station can bring the people together. So the online radio station is here to serve the people of West St. George.
A new product made from the Belair Mineral Spa water was also launched at yesterday's event. Bacchus Batiste noted that only herbs was added to the water to give it a special flavor.
Also launched today the herbal water from the Belair Spa. We bottled the water, infused herbs into it. We had lemon, ginger, and spice. We also can do lime. That took off like hot bread. I mean, persons were just buying it and saying they're really enjoying it. I had to stop the sale so that persons who came to look at the exhibition can see what the herb spa looks like. So we've had orders for persons who could not get it to buy so that we can produce it. Now, this project, I think, can really promote this spa water and push the persons of West St. George, because I don't have to do it. I am just giving persons the idea that you can infuse herbs into the spa water, add something to it, and make it even more refreshing. So that is the whole idea behind it. Well, that's it. It has to be created like on the spot, because it's not something that can stay there. No additives, nothing except the infused herbs. So there's no sugar, no additives, just the spa water and the different herbs, whether it be lemon or ginger or cinnamon or lime. So if persons are interested, they can contact me at 528-8903 and place an order, and the Western George Community Group will produce it.
As to future plans for the constituency, Bacchus Batiste promises to have lights installed on the Daphne playing field.
We also had a talent search where we had the Gomez School took part, the Bel Air School took part, and also the Western George Secondary School. We had dancing, we had a lovely DJ competition between, I think that was the Western George School, and we also had singing. They have not announced the winners yet, so I am not going to say who the winners are. But first prize will be $500 cash, second prize $300 cash, and third prize $200 cash. And there are going to be some consolation prizes. And there's a big trophy also donated to us by Mark Sardine, and that will go to the most outstanding show. The person who produced the best show, whether it be one of the exhibitors or one of the performers. And so hopefully persons have enjoyed themselves. We're going to go until about 8 o'clock tonight, and then after that we have our spa water and our online radio station. One thing I'm going to say before I leave, I also promised to light this playing field, the Kobe playing field, and that is my next project.